Namaskar. This Saturday, in the part 2 of the series on the National Education Policy, I will continue my analysis of the various provisions made, as I did in the first part. The policy is great in content and intent, like our Honorable Prime Minister said. However, its implementation can pose challenges for the administrators. It also must be said that the policy by far is the best created, but will need funds in excess of 6% of the gross domestic product or GDP. It always varied between 2 to 3% throughout the years. The committee would have done well if a chapter was dedicated to the gap study at the beginning. The recommendations would have carried a lot more conviction, for that would have contrasted what ailed the system in the past with what would be possible in the future. Reasons for dropouts like poverty, lack of interest, and lack of skills, which are well documented elsewhere, are unfortunately not accounted for in this policy. Provisions made for exits and compulsory education are contradictory. They seem to be contradictory. Such factors are often researched in the social science or social sciences, but somewhere missing in the policy. Equity calls for inclusion of all. Digitization of open schools for migratory children is a great idea. But most of the migratory children are poor. So where will they get the digital aids and computers to study from digital open schools? So we need to make some enabling systems for that to happen. Schools in India vary from single room structures without water and sanitation to technology-enabled international schools. The disparity seems to be very large. One would have expected a common minimum standard for setting up a school, below which no permissions would be accorded. Absence of a standard can actually widen the gap. Perhaps all these concerns are work in progress and will be addressed as we go along in time. Teacher training has been talked about in every policy and every meet of the educationists, and all and sundry. Everyone talks about it. Continuous development programs, or CDPs as we call, for capacity building has been discussed but not explored enough for implementation strategies. To succeed, even the current teachers in the system must undergo training. However, with rigorous preparation through a 4-year integrated stage and subject-specific programs offered in multidisciplinary institutions, the training could fall short. So a lot of enabling mechanisms again must come in place for the training of teachers. The policy suggests a multidisciplinary higher education ecosystem and a simplified university system to emphasize on professional, humanities and pure science streams. Phasing out complex nomenclature such as deemed to be university, affiliating university, unitary university, and retain only terms as public, private or private aided is much needed and has been proposed and will be implemented through the policy. Pitching for multidisciplinary research universities or comprehensive teaching universities appears very rational, though a debate of a teaching institute that also does research or a research institute that also does teaching will go on forever. Whatever be the recommendation, Any regimentation of education or structures in education can only be counterproductive. For now, let's understand a little more of interdisciplinary research through this video.
Interdisciplinarity involves the combining of two or more academic disciplines into an activity, for example, a research project. It is about creating something new by crossing boundaries and thinking across them. It is related to an interdiscipline or an interdisciplinary field, which is an organizational unit that crosses traditional boundaries between academic disciplines or schools of thought, as new needs and professions emerge. The term interdisciplinary is applied within education and training pedagogies to describe studies that use methods and insights of several established disciplines or traditional fields of study. Interdisciplinarity involves researchers, students, and teachers in the goals of connecting and integrating several academic schools of thought, professions, or technologies, along with their specific perspectives, in the pursuit of a common task. The epidemiology of AIDS or global warming require understanding of diverse disciplines to solve complex problems. Interdisciplinary may be applied where the subject is felt to have been neglected or even misrepresented in the traditional disciplinary structure of research institutions, for example, women's studies or ethnic area studies. Interdisciplinarity can likewise be applied to complex subjects that can only be understood by combining the perspectives of two or more fields. The adjective interdisciplinary is most often used in educational circles when researchers from two or more disciplines pool their approaches and modify them so that they are better suited to the problem at hand, including the case of the team-taught course, where students are required to understand a given subject in terms of multiple traditional disciplines. For example, the subject of land use may appear differently when examined by different disciplines, for instance, biology, chemistry, economics, geography, and politics.
One of the major disconnects of Indian universities has been the research quotient, where our universities are disconnected with the industry. Research without patents and IPRs is certainly a cause for concern. Innovation, variously understood, has always been on the sidelines. There are, of course, some institutions very good in the country which do all this even today, but that needs to be scaled to a very, very large level. The National Education Policy's recommendations of a new authority, the National Research Foundation, NRF, is a very good idea. It possibly will be limited in effectiveness given that Higher Education Financing Agency, HEFA, also has similar functions, similar roles. A clarity of purpose between the two can go a long way. Probably it will come in time to come. It also advises segregation and accreditation, funding and regulation roles for regulators. Is creating a National Higher Education Regulatory Authority or NHERA independent enough to replace the existing individual regulators in higher education, including the professional and vocational education. Though a very good idea, it may also suggest that we are probably going in circles. The devil is in detailing to avoid the implementation blues. We have several prestigious institutions in the country, like the IITs, that produce several thousands of PhDs. Several papers are published in very reputed journals. The researchers are world-renowned and mix with the best of their own across the globe. It is, however, a serious concern that the research does not come together to translate into products. So what we need is productization of our research. The national education policy would have made great service if they had addressed the problem based on the German experience. One important recommendation should have been to encourage setting up institutions and societies on the Fraunhofer model, which earns about 70% of its income through contracts with the industry, or specific government projects, and the other 30%, the remaining 30% of the budget is sourced in the proportion of 9:1 from state land government grants used to support preparatory research. This is a new team member of Fraunhofer Translation Center of Regenerative Therapies. I would like you to watch the video to see the great amount of work that is done through Fraunhofer applied research institutions. Thus, the size of the society's budget would depend largely on the success in maximizing revenue from commissions. This funding model applies not just to the central society itself, but also to individual institutions that are set up by the Fraunhofer Society. This serves the realization of such a society's strategic direction to be a leader in applied research, as also encourage a flexible, autonomous and entrepreneurial approach to its research priorities. We all know that the best of the engineering products come from Germany. Opportunities that could have accrued by setting up Max Planck and Fraunhofer model institutions would have been phenomenal, apart from supporting Make in India and Startup India initiatives that have great potential to pitch India as a leader. A Make in India hub for productization that would promote massively new products and new job markets in various sectors like defense, railways, agriculture, infrastructure, healthcare could have been the pole star of the report. Virtual laboratories, either to reach the unreached or as value addition, may be a good initiative, but applied science is not virtual, it is real. A national mission on education through information and communication technology to enable virtual laboratories that provide remote access to laboratories in various disciplines will certainly prove useful, but in itself cannot substitute the real. So therefore there must be a blended learning concept. Blended learning should have been recommended in place of disaggregated distance or online learning paradigms that we have today. In a long line of commissions that we have, another one is suggested, a National Education Commission or Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog as an apex body for education to be responsible for developing, implementing, evaluating and revising the vision of education in the country on a continuous and sustained basis. However, time will tell if this is a good idea, though portents seem to be there to suggest that it could prove useful. A system driven by self-imposed checks and balances would probably be the best for results to show early. But then, such a system will need leaders who are statesmen and are truly erudite and lead from the front. Any policy must connect education with available opportunities of employment. That said, employment opportunities must also grow many times. To be prepared for the jobs of the complex, dynamic and rapidly globalizing future, students should have opportunities to learn firsthand and learn how their academic work applies to potential career paths and vice versa. The Fraunhofer model of institutions could have set up several supply chains around the main institution in different sectors, which could have spun off many new employment opportunities, besides creating many ideas for new products. Programs that allow for this exposure and provide students with tangible outcomes in every district and every village are called for. The report must translate to operational details, both on the implementation and on the models required for financing. Finance holds the key. Change does not result from speaking into a vacuum. Ideas and actions must extend well beyond the social media and the edtech companies or the edtech cliches. We have an education market in excess of $100 billion, but does not attract enough investments. The policy at the current point of time probably lacks operational details and does not offer insights into how the policy will be funded. However, these are expected to be in place as we see more and more adoption of the policy by our institutions and universities. The center must also ensure that the policy does not face litigation, state resistance and operational challenges hitting the ground for the road to success and the road to failure are almost exactly the same. Friends, that's all for this Saturday in the part 2 of the National Education Policy, and I will be back the next Saturday with more analysis in the third part of the series on the implementation of the policy. Until then, namaskar, dhanyavad and thank you.